This is The Jason Jones Show, powered by Mudhouse Media. Now, here's Jason Jones.
Aloha, everybody, and welcome to The Jason Jones Show. This is Jason Jones, broadcasting from the west side of Oahu. Here's a question for you. How are you responding to the encroachments on your freedom? How are you responding to the fact that your mayor says you can't open your business, that your governor says you cannot go to church? What are you doing? What should we do? To help me answer that question, I have a pastor in Honolulu, Pastor Bud Stonebreaker from Calvary Chapel. He's an old friend. In fact, I met him when I was a young atheist, and it was in his father's church that I accepted Jesus Christ and became a Christian. Well, Pastor Bud has announced that he is running for mayor of Honolulu. He has my endorsement, by the way. He's going to have my support. He's going to have my vote. So I'm asking him, Pastor, what are we supposed to be doing? How are we going to get our freedom back? How are we going to open our businesses back? How are we going to open our churches back? How am I going to control all this passion I have inside? Or maybe I should just redirect it and get to work. That is the question. So this episode is not being brought to you by our sponsors. It's just being brought to you by Jason Jones, because our sponsors are nonprofits. So let's get on with the show. Pastor Bud Stonebreaker, Calvary Chapel, announcing he is running for mayor of Honolulu. The battle is on. The Aloha Revolution has begun. It's the Jason Jones Show. Aloha, Pastor Stonebreaker. Welcome to the Jason Jones Show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, we've been friends for over 20 years. I met you at your church, where was the first church I ever darkened the door to, and it's the place I became a Christian. So for that, I just want to thank you and your father and Calvary Chapel Honolulu for introducing me to Jesus Christ.
Oh, well, it's our pleasure. I don't feel like we did the work. We presided over and watched God do a good work in you. So that's a joy for me.
Well, brother, you're somebody you're a pastor. You've announced that you're running for mayor, which has me very excited. You have my vote. You're running for mayor of Honolulu, and you have my endorsement. But you said something to me in a conversation the other day, and I said, I got to have Pastor Stonebreaker on my show. You talked about this as being diabolical, and this is antichrist. And you know me since before I was a Christian. I'm a very spirited person. I was poorly formed, easy to manipulate. My emotions are always, I'm always trying to rein myself in. And I feel like all of us right now are having all of our buttons pushed to bring out the worst of us and divide us. So you're a pastor. You're probably experiencing this too. So my question is, the reason I wanted to have, how do we as Christians, it's challenging just to be a decent human being in the midst of this.
Well, I identify with you, Jason, because I'm a fighter. And the challenge that I have, which you well understand, is how to fight the right things in the right way. And as a Christian, we have to remember that being pugnacious or having that fighting spirit is not bad. God's given that to us so that we can be defenders of our family and defenders of truth. And that's really that part of us that God builds into us. So to understand what to do with this good fighting spirit, let's call it.
And when you say you're a fighter, you were an NCAA wrestling champion. You do grappling tournaments, jiu-jitsu.
Personality-wise, when a conflict comes up, there are some people who will be the encouragers and the supporters of a cause, and there will other people that they just want to get out to the front line and fight. And I'm kind of that person. I just want to go to the battle and take care of it. If there's anything, threatening my family or my neighborhood, I want to be there to stand for, the right thing. Now, some people, they fight in different ways. And I did. I thought, well, I train fighters. I don't like fighting, but I'm decent at it. So I won the national wrestling championships, and I trained a number of fighters, some UFC fighters and stuff like that. Brett Tavares, we trained together. Yancy Medeiros. I think I've met Max Holloway, friends of mine. Nico Vital, he's a good friend, great brother in the Lord. So I do like combat, but in this case, we're dealing with a social combat. I think about our church and what we're going through, the pressures that you talked about us being under. You know, this agenda that we see happening, there's this test, trace, treat agenda. We tracked it from the very beginning. When COVID-19 came out, they told us testing, tracing, treating. And it sounded good, but I recognized right away that it was a mantra. These were talking points. This is stuff that comes out of governments. These are agendas. And you saw it everywhere. And so they began with the testing. And I was surprised that when they tested, they weren't testing for antibodies, which would show us how far this disease had spread. And people were now immune to it. Those people who caught the virus, they won't get it again, for the most part. And now we're discovering that those people who are asymptomatic can't even spread it. So every day that goes by, we learn more about this virus, and we find out that it's less deadly than they originally told us. So that gives us pause, because when they initiated this whole thing, they said we're flattening the curve. Then they changed that story, and they sort of acted like we are going to stop this. And in order to stop this, we have to take more freedom from your life. We have to point a gun at your head when you come into the airport. And I see these things happening. I think this is the conditioning of a public. This is the conditioning of a people. These things are a dark agenda. These are the kind of things that happen in Hitler's Germany. These kinds of tactics of turning people upon one another, creating snitches. These are all operations of evil government. And so we've watched as the narrative has shifted and been confusing, but it's all within a general picture of the end of this is we're going to take as much freedom from people as possible. But the science is showing that this thing has a fatality rate of the flu. We can protect the most vulnerable because we understand more about it now. But we shouldn't be doing any of these things that we're doing now. These lockdowns, these social distancing mandates, the masks, the tape on the floor at the shopping centers, the standing in line, the limited space in restaurants and churches and stuff. All of this stuff is unnecessary. The governor has given an executive order. He's overdue on that by about 60 days. He has no more right. The mayor is not taking any action for the people of Hawaii. They are allowing us in a state that has been enormously protected from this virus. But the issue now is the freedom for people. And we have got to set the people of Hawaii free, or else we are heading toward a catastrophic future, either economically or as regards our civil rights. Well, and so my desire to run is to fight just for the freedom of every person in Hawaii. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, whether you're of one faith or another faith, it doesn't matter, because we need freedom. We need freedom to have a forum. And to have a forum, that freedom allows us to have the exchange of free thoughts and free thinking. But what's happening now is that's being removed from us. And people are being forced into living in fear, suspicion of their neighbors. It's tearing aloha apart. Let me tell you a story. One of my neighbors, she just had a baby. Beautiful child, a month ago. She told me that in the hospital, they had to test her for COVID-19. And if she had it, they were going to take her baby from her. They were going to separate mother from child. Now, I've studied history enough to know that these are the kind of tactics that communists use, the fascists use. This is a Hitlerian kind of ethic that you'll have somebody on their deathbed, auntie or grandfather, and you can't see them before they depart this world. That is so cruel. And I want the people of Hawaii to stand with me for aloha and end this dark, evil cruelty. It's wrong. And this is a moral issue. We have a moral imperative to fight for freedom for every person on these islands. And the best I can do at this point is to run for mayor. Thanks for letting me go on.
Well, no, I love it. And you know, what you said about we need freedom to worship God. You said it doesn't matter what faith you are, that the foundation is freedom. And you know what helped me really understand that? I have a friend. He was literally a general for Saddam Hussein. And because of that, even though he worked with the American government afterwards, never would have let him come to the United States. But a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours who's high up in the government, his father died, and they're very close. So we were able to get him to come to the United States for the funeral. He was here for 3 weeks. He's lived all over the Middle East. He's been all over Europe, but he's never been to the United States. The end of his trip, I said, "What most surprised you about the United States?" He said, "I'll tell you. First of all, I thought they were going to arrest me and waterboard me before I got out of the airport. I had all these fears. But by the time," and he's a very handsome, striking guy. He's like, "By the time I got out of the airport, I felt like more at home. By the time I left the airport, I felt more at home in the United States than I do as an Iraqi in other Arab countries. No one looked at me as I was different. No one treated me as other." He said, "But what really most struck me was I thought of America as being a godless country. And I saw Muslims nowhere but Islam everywhere." And I said, "I don't know what that means. What do you mean by that?" "Well, Islam just means thoughtful to God or thinking about God." He said, "I've never seen a country that thinks more about God, that talks more about God, that is more aware of God's presence in their life than Americans." He said, "In the Middle East, there's these public acts of piety, but people aren't really thinking about God, aren't really loving about God, aren't really discussing God in a real way." Like you said, they could be sloganeering or they can be saying pious utterances to let everyone know you're on the same page, but a real communication. And I thought that's the genius of our founding fathers, that they gave us a form of government where we are not afraid. When you met me, I was a hardcore atheist, but you were not afraid to talk to me and share with me Jesus Christ. And I was brought to your church. I don't know if you remember this, by a woman named Jan Judd, who was Episcopalian.
Oh, yeah.
And she would lobby
Yeah.
at the legislature. And she was her husband was a state senator who actually brought legal abortion to Hawaii. She committed her life to try to undo that. And she brought me to your church. And what was attractive to me about your church more than any church was your public defense of the vulnerable. You were the most active church in defending the child in the womb from violence. I found that removed the scandal that was in my eye that Christians were hypocrites or didn't care about the weak. And that's what removed the scandal. But what you just said reminded me of what my buddy said, that you're not running as a pastor. You're a pastor that's running because our freedom is at stake. And once our freedom is lost, our ability to talk about God. We have Governor Pritzker of Illinois and Mayor de Blasio of New York both said that they use the phrase, "I will raise churches to the ground." Yes. Pritzker said if churches open up and disobey the lockdown order, he will raise them to the ground.
He used that inflammatory, incendiary term.
Yeah, I'm not adding hyperbole. The exact term. Then de Blasio, de Blasio said it first, but actually was even more aggressive. He said, "I will raise any church to the ground that opens up, and they will never open again." Now, I've been to Iraq.
This is why I'm running.
This
is the stuff you hear all over our country, and it's such an evil. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've traveled with the Peshmerga as they were liberating Kurdistan from ISIS. I've been in the Nineveh Plains where ISIS raised churches that had been there for 1,800, 1,900 years. I've seen what it looks like.
Yeah, I've trained chaplains in the South Sudan before it was the South Sudan. I've taught chaplains in the Nuba Mountains. These men would be on the front lines being devoured by Islam at the time and being taken slaves. And I've seen their thirst for freedom and their desire just to have their own, autonomy. And there's such a desperate need for the freedom in the world. The scripture says that it was for freedom that Christ set you free. So don't be subject to a yoke of slavery, or don't be subject to the manacles or shackles of slavery. Don't let your mind be enslaved. Don't be twisted or turned in your thinking. And so our government was built upon the principle of freedom. But the issue for us and for me as a pastor is that freedom is best enjoyed by those who have an internal government of morality and truth. And so if I am a slave to my desires, then I'm really not free, even if I live in a free society. We all have to put our own, our own moral behavior on guard so that we can enjoy everybody's freedom. So I'm glad to defend a Muslim's freedom or a Buddhist freedom or an atheist freedom, anybody's freedom, because that is the foundation of our country. And that's what I said by we need freedom so that we can have a forum. And to have a democracy, you have to have a forum. And the foundation of it all is freedom. So this measure that's coming into Hawaii, and it's like a dark cloud of evil. And you can call it anarchy, you can call it tyranny, you can call it communism, or you can just call it demonic. It's the spirit of our free people that I want to awaken. I want to invite them to say, stand up. Now is the time. Because we may not have much time left. We read Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago, and he talks about the devastation of communism. I have visited and I have seen the bones coming out of the earth in Cambodia under Pol Pot's regime. We know that there's a dark evil of communism in China right now. Jason, did I tell you about my friend in the Honolulu Star Advertiser? They opened their newspaper, and there was the front page business section, the sports page, and then there was a new section in there called the China Daily. And he didn't understand why he got what looked to be like a communist publication in his local paper. So he called them, and they said, "Oh, you weren't supposed to get that. That only goes to certain people. It must have been a mistake." And then he questioned them again and said, "But why is there what essentially amounts to propaganda coming in my newspaper?" And so we have this dark specter of communism influencing things from media, social media, even the news. I mean, you look at the basketball stars that bent down and kneeled down before China. Look at what's happening.
And meanwhile, Pastor, my audience knows I have the Prime Minister in exile on my podcast quite a bit from East Turkestan. 3 million Uyghurs are in concentration camps having their organs harvested. Yeah, and we're going to kneel before a regime that forces abortions on its people, that has 3 million people in concentration camps.
And here's the craziest thing, Jason. See, this virus came out of China, and the irony of it all is that we're implementing China's policies on our own people. We're creating a surveillance state. The next phase is not just the testing, then it's the tracing. That's where people are hired. These are like the people that they're going to get are sort of militarized people that are so, the nanny state will be a bunch of crybabies complaining that you're not standing far enough apart or you don't have a mask. And so
yelling shame at you.
On top of that, Google and Apple are going to track you all the time. And who cares about the HIPAA rights that we have of privacy? Those are all out the window. That's what's coming. And here's the scariest thing to me, Jason, is the treating aspect. The World Health Organization and other Department of Healths around the country have told us this, that if somebody has this sickness, they will come to your house and take you out of it to a, quote, safe place. They're telling us that they're going to set up prison camps or health camps or medical camps, and they're going to separate families. This is pure communism.
Well, the good news is now that you're running, and I know you were in office for 3 terms. It's not politics isn't something that's enjoyable. It's not something you look forward to, right?
No, I have no aspirations.
It's not like how do I going to spend my life? But here's the good news. Hawaii, I don't know what you think about this, but wherever I've gone over the world, this is the most godly people. They think about God. They love God. They love their neighbors. But the devil's a judo master. He knows how to take advantage of our virtues too. And that community spirit can be used against the community. And that's my great fear. We haven't had one politician in this state. Many of them are your friend and my friends. But not one of them has really stood up and been courageous to go against the narrative. So I'm glad you're running.
I used to work I worked with Kirk Caldwell. I was a representative when he was a representative. I was a representative with Josh Green. In fact, Tulsi Gabbard used to work in my office. So I know some of these people. I love them all. I might disagree with them, but I love them all. And so I'm not really running to get back into politics. I feel like somebody asked my 8-year-old son the other day, hey, I heard your dad's running for mayor. And he said, yeah, he doesn't want to, but he has to. And I was so proud of him that he understands our heart is we're not doing this because we have aspirations. I don't want to run for higher office. I don't want to make money. I'm a kalo farmer in Waimanalo. I grow taro. I have a small church. And I just love my people.
Hey, Pastor, you're breaking up. You're breaking up a little bit, Pastor. I wanted to make sure people hear what you had to say there.
You park right next to the. I just pulled into a parking lot. I have an interview here, but I'm going to try to get to a place I can. Is that any better?
Yeah, it's perfect.
So I have no political ambitions. I know these candidates. Many of them are retreads. Many of them, they've done it before. I mean, Amemiya is, corrupt. He's part of the Old Boy Network. Mufi Hanneman is a retread. He's part of the problem. He's part of the system. Hanabusa, the same thing. Old retread politicians doing the same thing with the same corruption. I know some of the other candidates as well, and I like them as people, but they are fundamentally the wrong people for this time. We have to open this economy. We have to diversify this economy. We need to allow for agriculture and farming. I mean, the Hawaiians lived here, hundreds of years ago, and they never got any imports. They grew for themselves. They were able to be self-sustaining, self-sufficient. I think the city can do a lot to go in that direction with the Department of Planning and Permitting. We have zoning laws, and we can allow farming to boom in Hawaii again. And that's in the long term. So I do have a plan. I do have a plan for Hawaii's future, but my main platform is freedom for all. And this is an Aloha Revolution.
Well,
and can I invite your listeners
you
to
sure can.
kind of my kickoff event?
You can.
On Thursday.
Yeah.
On Thursday, King Kamehameha Day, at 2 p.m. in front of Honolulu Hale, I am going to call out Mayor Caldwell and challenge him, dare him to arrest me as we take leis and put them on the statue of King Kamehameha. And then we're going to continue our march up Mauka, and we're going to go toward the governor's mansion and the state capitol. And I'm going to stop at the prison where Queen Liliuokalani was held captive. And then we're going to have a speech in front of the governor's mansion. And I'm going to challenge him to take action for the people of Hawaii who are suffering. And one of the first things that I'll do when I get into office is I will suspend all the mayor's decrees, and I will instruct the police department to only issue warnings under these heavy mandates so that we can preserve the spirit of aloha in this island. So Thursday, King Kamehameha Day, Honolulu Hale, 2 p.m. We will march to King Kamehameha's statue. We will put our leis there. We'll march Mauka. We'll go up to the governor's mansion and state capitol, and we should be done by 3 o'clock. Bring your signs. Bring your bright colors, red and yellow, and join our Aloha Revolution.
I'll be there, and I am so excited. When you told me you were running, my heart leapt because not one of those half of the state is running for mayor, and not one of them has had the courage to stand up against these ham-fisted policies that have given us the highest unemployment in the developed world.
Jason, that's why I think we can even win this thing in the primary. I think the people of Hawaii are hungry for liberty. And I think that I'm going to stand out from the other candidates. And I think they're going to split all the other votes. But the people of Hawaii who want liberty and aloha, I think we could even win this. I have that kind of confidence in the people of Hawaii. So I'm so glad to be on your show.
Well, brother, I know you got to go to another interview. This show is we have audience in all 50 states and around the world. I hope you encourage other pastors and other Christian men and women to run for office. Let this be a revolution for liberty across our country, across the world. that if,
amen.
that we need to start forest fires for freedom in every little city across the country to let them know we are going to push back neighborhood by neighborhood, city by city, state by state until we are free again, because we right now are not a free country. Thank you, Pastor Stonebreaker. Get to your interview.
Can I ask your audience directly, my friends, would you please go to my website, budstonebreaker.com, STONEBRAKER. There's not BREA, budstonebreaker.com, and join my team of online activists. I need your Twitter feeds, your Instagram, your Facebook. You can help me in this cause. You can send money if you want to send money. You can pray. Please pray for me. I need your help. Would you go to that website and be a part of my campaign? Thank you.
All right. I'll see you Thursday.
Okay, Jason. Love you guys.
I love you, brother. God bless. All right, guys. That was my first pastor, Pastor Bud Stonebreaker, and he is announcing that he is running for mayor of Honolulu. This episode has not been brought to you by my sponsors because they're nonprofits, but I wanted you to hear from this pastor. How should we respond to tyranny? And his answer is, you live in a constitutional republic. Maybe get involved in the civic life of your community, up to and including running for office, which he is doing. I'm going to put his website in the show notes. Join that revolution. We are not helpless. We are free people. And we have the ability to push back at every level the encroachments on our liberty. This has been an episode of The Jason Jones Show, broadcasting from the west side of Oahu, and my voice is about to go. So until tomorrow, aloha.
This has been The Jason Jones Show, powered by Mudhouse Media.